Welcome back. For today, we're going to be going over how to turn the decimal into a fraction. So if you don't have a scratched piece of paper and a pencil to write down your notes, pause this video and go ahead and grab a scratched piece of paper so you can copy down these notes. Okay, so to turn a decimal into a fraction, there's two ways. One, if you know how to properly say this decimal, then it should be easy to turn it into a fraction. But if you don't know how to properly say this decimal, then I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to figure out how to turn it into a fraction. So the proper way to say this is not 0.2, it's 2/10. Now, if you can't remember how to say it as a decimal, then here's a quick and easy way to convert this decimal to a fraction. So what I have my students do is always circle the whole number, and since there's no whole number, it's 0, but I'm still circling it to show you what I'm talking about. So you're circling the whole number, and then underneath the decimal only, I'm going to put a fraction. Okay, so I have 0.2 on the top, and then below that, where the decimal is, I'm going to put a 1, and then for each digit after the decimal, I'm going to add a 0. So now, this is 2 over 10. Okay, now when we're dealing with fractions, we always simplify our fraction, even if it doesn't say 2. We always simplify our fraction. So I have 2 over 10. Now to simplify a fraction, we figure out what can I divide 2 and 10 by to give me a whole number still. So what can go into 2 and 10 evenly? So since they're both even, I can divide both of them by 2. So I'm going to do 2 divided by 2 and 10 divided by 2. Now what is 2 divided by 2? And the answer would be 1. And then what is 10 divided by 2? And 10 divided by 2 is 5. Since there is no whole number at the beginning, 1/5 is my final answer. So 2/10 as a fraction is 1/5. Okay, let's look at the next one. So this one does have a whole number, so I'm going to circle it, and then I'm going to put a star so I don't forget to come back to it. Okay, then I'm going to put a fraction bar underneath my decimal. I'm going to put a 1 under the decimal, and then a 0 under every digit after the decimal. So there are 3 digits after my decimal. 1, 2, 3 digits after my decimal, so I need 3 zeros after my 1. Alright, so I have 15 over 1,000. So the proper way to say this decimal is 15 thousandths. Now what can I divide 15 and 1,000 by and still give me a whole number? Since it ends in a 5 and a 0, I can divide both of them by 5. Alright, so what is 15 divided by 5? And the answer for that would be 3. And then what is 1,000 divided by 5? And 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. Okay, so I look at this fraction. Can it be simplified anymore? Well, the only number that you can divide 3 by is 3. And 200 divided by 3 wouldn't give me a whole number. So this is as simplified as possible. But we still have to remember about our whole number. So our final answer has to include that whole number. So I'm going to have 1 and 3 200ths, or 3 over 200. And that would be my final answer. Okay, let's look at the next one. So this next one, I have a whole number. So I'm going to circle it and star it so I don't forget about it. Then I put a fraction bar under my decimal. I'm going to put a 1 under the decimal, and then a 0 for every digit after the decimal. So I have 8 hundredths. 8 over 100. Okay, and then looking at this, what can I divide 8 and 100 by evenly? And since they're both even numbers, I can divide both of them by 2. And some of y'all are looking at this and saying, wait, we can divide by a higher number. But we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so what is 8 divided by 2? And the answer for that is going to be 4. And then 100 divided by 2 gives me 50. Now looking at this, I still have 2 even numbers, and if My numerator and denominator, the top and bottom number, are both even. That means I can divide by 2 again. So I'm going to divide by 2 here. And 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. 50 divided by 2 is 25. Okay, so 8 over 100 in its simplest form is 2 over 25. And the only number that 2 can be divided by is 2, but since 25 is an odd number, I can't divide it by 2. Now for those of y'all that were saying, hey, I can divide 8 over 100 by a higher number, y'all were correct. So if I have 8 over 100, I can divide both of these by 4. Since I divided by 2 here and 2 here, 2 times 2 is 4. So I could do 8 divided by 4, which would give me 2. And then 100 divided by 4 gives me 25. So both of these give me the same end result. It's just if you didn't see that we could divide by 4 at the end, then you just need to make sure. If you simplify once, you need to make sure that you can't simplify any more. And in the case that we did for the first time around, we could have simplified by 2 twice or by 4 once. All right. But we can't forget about that whole number. So my final answer is going to be 14 and 2 25ths. All right, let's do one more together. Okay, so looking at this one, I'm going to circle the whole number, put a star next to it so I don't forget, and then I'm going to put a fraction bar underneath the decimal. So I have 1 underneath the decimal, and then a 0 underneath every digit after the decimal. So I have 9 over 10. And 9/10 is actually as simplified as it can get, is because the only number that can go into 9 is 3, 9, and 1. But 10 you can't divide by 3 or 9. So I need to make sure I put my whole number in front of the fraction, and there's my final answer, 2 and 9/10. Okay, now that you have an understanding of how to convert a decimal into a fraction, go ahead and watch the second video I posted on Schoology to show you what I want you to do for today's assignment.